Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the A Better Life Together Inc. Wednesday webinar series. And this is brought to you by the ABLT Inc. Disparity Project team. My name is Melissa and I'm the project and media coordinator at ABLT. I'm joined today by my colleagues on the Disparity Project team, Carmela Marybow. She's the outreach at ABLT Inc. And Elizabeth Jackson is our project manager for the Disparity Project, and she's also today's presenter. The purpose of the webinar series is to provide tips to parents and individuals with disabilities. And today's topic, the Lanterman Developmental Disabilities Act, is all about how understanding and familiarizing yourself with the act and the law can help you access disability services.
So
So
we're
we'll
going
go
to
on and get started. Elizabeth, if you want to take it away.
I'm going to take it away. Like I said, the Lanterman Developmental Disabilities Act, instead of saying that all the time, uh, people colloquially call it the Lanterman Act. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Some people might think that's not an exciting subject, but it is. It really, really is. And so here we go. Uh, the Lanterman Act is a California law, and it gives people that have been diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disabilities rights to services so that they can live their most independent and productive life possible. It's part of the California Welfare and Institutions Code, also known as WIC, not to be confused with women, infants, and children, but you'll see at the bottom of some of the slides kind of the reference to a welfare and institutions code. So just so you know, um, that's how that works. And we can go at, later on in the presentation, I'll show you where to actually look at the law and how the welfare and institutions code, as well as the IDEA, all come together. The Lanterman Act specifies that the regional center is the starting point in order for someone to get services and supports they need. So what does the Lanterman Act do? First and foremost, it tells you what your rights are. If you're someone that's been diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability, this is the go-to outline for what your rights are, what you can put up with, what you need to do if someone says you can't get what you need, how the regional centers and service providers through the regional center can help you, what services and supports you can get, how to use the individualized program plan, also known as the IPP, to get those services that you need. And we'll go in a little deeper on what that IPP is and how it interacts with the Lanterman Act and how someone can get services and supports they need based on the goals that are in that IPP. Um, and how you can make the system better, how to advocate for yourself, and the tools uh, that are at your disposal to do that advocacy, to get what you need. And it all comes down to self-determination. Other way of saying it is person-centered thinking, person-centered planning. Uh, the individual that is seeking services and supports has the right to make choices about uh, everything, like all the things that we take for granted, like where to live, where to go to school, whether or not to go to school if you're over 22, how you want to belong to your community. Do you want to get out there, get involved in something, get involved with local government, get involved with some litter cleanup, whatever you want to do? You have the right to state what you want to do, and people are there to help you make that come to fruition. Uh, the Lanterman Act says that you have a right to make choices about your life and make decisions about what services and supports you want and need, not what they want to provide to you or what's available. I have a goal. I need these services and support to make that goal happen. That's the Lanterman Act is your support system. So know your rights. The Lanterman Act outlines many different rights. Like again, we take for granted, uh, like dignity and humane care. We all strive to not only receive that, but to give that. Uh, but having a safe and comfortable place to live, number one, of course. Privacy. You have the right to privacy. Uh, no one can make you tell them your private thoughts. Uh, you can, but no one can make you. Uh, you have the right to participate in an appropriate program of public education. Uh, Under 22, the public school system takes care of that. And then once a person turns 22, it's up to them whether they want to continue an education program, if they want to go into the workforce, uh, do volunteer work, whatever their plan is, that's up to them after age 22. Um, Prompt medical care and treatment goes without saying. That's absolutely a right. Uh, you're you have the right to those supports and services to help you find a good doctor and one that you feel comfortable with, just like anybody else. Religious freedom and practice absolutely have the right to that. Whether you want to be involved in a church, involved in a synagogue, or none at all. Uh, Nobody can say that's right or wrong. You can't be punished for believing one thing over another. You have the right to go to services that you want to go to and what your faith, personal faith, uh, compels you to do. Social interaction and participation in community activities. Most people want to be involved, whether it's in your community, with your friends out in the community, uh, getting out and about. I know it's difficult in the pandemic times, but there still needs to be social interaction of some sort. You can choose those people that you spend time with, whether it's virtually or maybe in person, depending. And the same with physical exercise and recreation. We all know, especially now, how important getting up and moving is. Getting outside, even if it's just to walk down to the mailbox or scooter over to the mailbox or what have you. You can choose those types of activities you want to do. If you want to try water skiing, let's see if it can work. Let's see what can we do to make that happen. And then I'm going to read these. I'm not a big fan of reading right off the slide, but this is important. You have the right to be free from harm in all aspects. No one can scare you, tie you down, or hurt you. No one can stop you from talking or going somewhere important, talking to or about, or going somewhere important. If it's important to you, you need to be able to go and do and talk. No one can refuse to help you when you need it. And no one obviously can give you medication you do not need. And you have the right to say, I don't need that and I'm not taking it, just like anybody else. Uh, be free from hazardous procedures, any kind of experimental, unnecessary treatments or procedures that harm you. Absolutely no. Like an example, using electric shock to get you to change your behavior. Ridiculous and absolutely forbidden. And you do have the right to get services and supports in the least restrictive environment. Instead of putting someone in what shall we say, a service box, you want to listen to the person, see what they want, see what they want to accomplish, and then tailor those supports and services to help them make that happen. So, along those lines, the Lanterman Act points to the regional center as your not only starting point, but focal point for coordinating services and supports for people that have been diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Uh, a, the regional center system is a state funded system, and each regional center is what operated by a private nonprofit organization, and they contract yearly with the Department of Developmental Services. Each regional center is responsible for showing who they are supporting, how they're supporting them, their follow-ups, et cetera, in order to get their contract renewed to be able to keep operating those regional centers. And the San Diego Regional Center, which doesn't just help folks in San Diego County, but also Imperial County, is just one of 21 regional centers in the state of California. So, what does the regional center actually do? I know when I started working with the Better Life Together, um, I didn't have any friends, family utilizing services through the regional center, so I didn't know oh, what what is what does the regional center do? Uh, and the law under the Lanterman Act and through IDEA, that's down at the bottom, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, says that anyone who has an intellectual or developmental disability can get services provided to them through the regional center. And not only that, anyone suspected of having an intellectual or developmental disability, and then also anyone at risk for giving birth to someone with an intellectual or developmental disability. Uh, what? How does it actually happen? What are the regional centers under the Lanterman Act? What do they need to do? They must find and identify people who need regional center services, and they're to do that through outreach in their communities. In our case, in San Diego County and Imperial County, they do have offices all throughout, uh, North County, East County, South Bay, Metro, and also in Imperial County, in Imperial, California. So the service coordinators and the people in those offices are also tasked with outreach to the community to make partnerships to find people that could avail themselves of regional center services. On top of that, the regional centers must evaluate people who apply for regional center services. Uh, the evaluation is to determine whether or not they're eligible for regional center services. And we'll go into a little more about that, about who's eligible for those services. It's intellectual and developmental disabilities, but like, what does that actually mean? And then also the regional centers must refer people at high risk of having a child with intellectual or developmental disabilities to family resource centers, local area resources to get that early intervention and help. So they're ready to apply for regional center services, or they apply for regional center services for their child, their upcoming child, if you will. The regional centers also are under the Lanterman Act. They have to coordinate services for all of their regional center consumers. That is the language that the regional centers use for people that have been determined eligible for regional center services. Some people call them clients, but if you see regional center consumers, that means somebody that's in the regional center system and has a coordinator to help them get the services and supports they need. The regional centers also are tasked with developing an individual program plan. That's that IPP we spoke about earlier. And each IPP is based on the individual's needs for support and services. It's not a catch-all. Each one is determined between the person receiving services, what their goals are, what is needed to get to those goals, and they work with their service coordinator at the regional center. There could be their team, which is family, friends, an advocate, someone from school, maybe a doctor, uh, maybe a psychologist through the regional center. Any of all of those people can be involved in the planning, but it's ultimately the person receiving services, their choice on what their goals, what they want to do. And then it's up to the regional center through the service coordinator to make sure that that person receives all the services and supports to help them reach their goals, which are outlined in the IPP. The regional center is also they're responsible for developing new services and supports, and monitor the quality of those services and supports provided, especially with the state of affairs with the pandemic. There's the regional center is working to find innovative ways to get the services out to the people when in-person services may not be possible. So that's part of their tasks. Now, we talked about this earlier a little bit. Who is eligible for regional center services? Uh, like I said, the bottom line is anyone that's been diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability that originated before age 18. And that issue is going to continue indefinitely and was diagnosed by a licensed physician. Uh, and a developmental disability is defined as a severe and chronic disability that's attributable to a mental or physical impairment. I would like to clarify originated before age 18, not diagnosed before age 18. If someone, however unlikely, has never been diagnosed with a developmental or intellectual disability before they've reached 18, doesn't necessarily mean they're not eligible for regional center services. It just means that maybe they're from another country, and that country there wasn't such a thing as intellectual or developmental disability, so therefore they were never officially diagnosed. uh, a physician in their community can do that, through a school, through a family historian. So it doesn't mean that if you hadn't been diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability before age 18, it doesn't mean the you're cut off from any kind of services through the regional center. It just will take more uh, documentation and evaluation, which the regional center can help to do as well. Uh, the disabilities we're talking about: intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and the autism spectrum. Uh, when I first started at A Better Life Together, I didn't understand other conditions similar to intellectual disability. To me, that could mean anything. So I I dug down deep to try to find out what that actually meant, and this is the explanation. Conditions that constitute a substantial disability in three or more of the following areas: communication, learning, self direction, capacity for independent living, economic self sufficiency, self care, and mobility. So that helped me. So hopefully that will help you as well. And if you're a resident of San Diego County or Imperial County, and you believe that you have an intellectual or developmental disability or have been diagnosed with one, uh, or referred through the school, however, uh, you can apply for services at the regional center. Uh, More eligibility. You don't need a doctor's referral to apply for services. Uh, it usually happens that way, either through a primary physician or through the school. Uh, that's how it usually happens. But you can apply for services yourself. Uh, or if you have a child and you think something's going on, you're not quite sure, maybe you don't have a primary care physician, whatever the case may be, go ahead and apply for services for that child or for your loved one. If the loved one is under 18, you have to be the parent or guardian. If the person's over 18, they need to do that themselves, or the conservator would do that for them. Um, and the regional center will evaluate um, by looking at all the documents that the person turns in with their application, what they call the intake process. And those documents are social, school related, medical, psychological, whatever you can get a hold of for yourself or your loved one or your child. Um, that would be turned in with your application to the regional center. The application process can take a long time, and up to 120 days. That's the cutoff that the Lanterman Act outlines that the regional centers have to do any evaluation, assessment, interviews, what have you, to determine eligibility once an application process has begun. So be patient. A way to cut down on your the lag time, if you will, is to make sure you have all those documents um, together before putting in your application. It alleviates a lot of back and forth, especially now that a lot of the meetings and such are virtual based. It will cut down on your time. Later on, I can, Disability Rights California has a nice list of documents that may be asked for in that intake process. So that could be very helpful. I have some links to that. So we'll go over that. We're just trying to cut down. If someone needs services, they don't want to wait 120 days, that they would like to have their services today. Not going to happen today, but soon. And like I said, would you like to know more? Uh, the Lanterman Act and all the related laws, including the Welfare and Institutions Codes, it's not fun reading. I'm not going to lie. I like it, but I've tried here in this presentation to give you some little digestible information. But if you would like to know more, the the full Lanterman Act, I don't even know how many pages. It's a lot of pages. Like, don't print it. But on the Department of Developmental Services website um, has the full Lanterman Act and related laws. What I found more helpful is going to other websites to kind of get the Cliff Notes version and then back it up and look at the actual law to make sure I understood it. It's a lot of reading. But disability rights, like I was talking before, they do have a lot of guides and checklists and supplements to help understand the rights that are outlined in the Lanterman Act. The RULA manual is wonderful, and that's where you can find RULA is the rights under the Lanterman Act. It outlines in very easy to read ways, hopefully, like this presentation, kind of bullet points your rights and what to do when something happens that you think your rights are being trampled upon. And then that manual toward the end, there's a checklist for documents, uh, name name of your doctor and contact information, just so you have all your ducks in a row when you go to do that intake process. Um, and I found this one, the Office of Developmental Primary Care has some information. And again, like Melissa said, that the presentation recording will be on the Bridge landing page on the abetterlifetogether.org. website. So this information will be there. Um, if you want to review it. Also, if you think of something, I'll have my contact information. Any kind of feedback, anything you think I might have missed, uh, please let me know. We're going to continue our wonderful webinar series. So we'll go more into depth on how to apply for services through the regional center. And so the feedback will help make that a more robust session. Um, so at this point, do we have any questions or answers? I'm not sure if in the chat, our chat captain will check. I can't really see the chat.
We just have one question. I was saying I was going to ask what documents.
Documents needed, I'm assuming for the intake or application process to the regional center.
Yeah, as soon as I was going to ask Elizabeth, you answered it, saying that the regional center would have a list of the documents that you might want to bring with you.
Yes.
So you answered it right then.
Okay. Yeah. And it's any and all documents you can get your hands on. So let's say it's for a child, their primary doctor records, if there's any like psychologist records, IEP, any and all related documents, the more the better. And
got it.
The regional center, yeah, they won't take originals also. So and I know now you can apply online for regional center services. So I'm thinking you can upload, scan and upload. I'm going to look into that, but that would alleviate that, because people would come in with all of their documents to the regional center, and the regional center is like, yeah, we can't take the originals. They have to be copies.
Right.
And so what I found out about that is if you call them ahead of time, so when we're back to doing in-person stuff, you call ahead and say, I have all my documents, but no way to copy it. They'll make an appointment and they'll copy everything and give you back the originals. Okay. So just a little tidbit there. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions or?
You did a good job. Very informative. All the questions that I was going to ask, you immediately answered them. So.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you. Yeah, and through our disparity call project, which Carmela and Melissa are just blowing that out, talking to lots of people, and a lot of folks, either family members or individuals themselves, are not aware that there is an actual law, what that law is called, to support them in their quest for either services for themselves or their child or their loved one. So I know that the team has come across this. What does the Lanterman Act have to do with a regional center? How does that mesh, and really what are the useful tools that can help us get the services that we feel like we're fighting for? Right. So, kind of prompted our discussion. Anything else? Well, there's my contact information. If anyone has, like I said, any suggestions, or you think of a question later, or like, ooh, it would be good to put this in there about this, let me know. Email me, call me. That's my cell phone. Text me. Whatever technology you like.